We have a major Matthew Knies contract update as multiple reports have come out revealing the future of Matthew Knies at the Toronto Maple Leafs and what his contract will look like going forward and where the talks are between the two sides. We're going to break that down as well as discuss Anthony Stolarz. He is off to an unbelievable start with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and people had some very interesting comments about his start to the season. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. If you're a part of the percentage that aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. But there's a lot to go over today, specifically surrounding a couple different players. We're going to focus on Matthew Knies, and it's been an interesting season for the Leafs so far. Obviously, a rough loss yesterday against the Minnesota Wild in overtime, but there's been some shining, there's been some good things, there's been some bad things, and one of the biggest positives so far this season has been Matthew Knies, and there's a couple different reports, one from Nick Kypreos, one from Darren Dreger. We're going to start with this one from Darren Dreger, and then he was asked about Matthew Knies' next contract, and he said it smells like a bridge because he's going to be big money, and there's other reports, we'll dive into all of it in a minute here, but there's just starting off on this. There's a lot of different reports going on. We had Austin Matthews speak out, which we'll get into the comments in a second, but reports are saying that we know that the Leafs and Matthew Knies are in ongoing conversations. We've heard that from Friedman in the past, and now Darren Dreger saying it's going to be big money. But it's going to be really big money, especially with the way he's been playing. Tons of goals this season, more goals than we expected. He's playing, he's driving the puck, he's doing unbelievable things. He's going to be getting paid a lot of money this offseason, or hopefully in the middle of the season if the Leafs are able to get it done.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to get done during the season here. I think if you're Matthew Knies and his camp, you have no interest in signing a contract until the season is done because you want the full season to be able to put it on the table and say, look what I did this year. Because right now he's half a point a game player, which is exactly where we thought he was going to be, or like, on the on his ceiling, right, that we were talking about in the summer. That's kind of where we would want him to be, and that looks like where he's going this year. So on the other side of things too, it looks like he wants a bridge. There's been some reports that he wants a bridge contract, and obviously Darren Dreger came out and said that. There's been other reports that stated he doesn't want to go longer than 4 years if it's a bridge, and that could be pretty good for the Toronto Maple Leafs, but at the same time, this is a player who's going to get paid one way or another, and I could see it being, we've been talking about it, probably $6 million at this point, especially with the salary cap going up. I think that's quite fair for what he brings to the table, because it's not scoring, right? Like, yes, he might put up 50, 60 points this year. That's kind of what it's looking like where it's going. But, what he brings in terms of physicality and the fact that he's a power forward and he goes to the dirty areas, that's the stuff you can't teach. And, he's been doing that all year long, and I love his game so far this year. So he is going to get paid one way or another, but I don't know on his side. If you're the Leafs, try and get this done as soon as possible because we know where he's going. He's going to be a great player. But on Matthew Knies' side, I think they're going to wait till the season's done. But I do believe, there won't be too much to it. I think they'll get a contract done.
Yeah, I think both sides have equal motivation to work out a deal here. And Matthew spoke out on Knies in his game, said he's so strong. I mean, he has such a presence down low in front of the net. For myself and Mitchie, we're working the puck around. He's finding really good spots and capitalizing on these opportunities. He's a beast and he's easy to play with. You always know where he's going to be. He's in good spots all the time. And he's obviously talking about that first line between him and Marner and Matthew Knies. And again, we talk about the first line, how it's struggling a little bit and some changes could be coming. I think Matthew Knies has solidified his spot alongside on the left wing of Austin Matthews for the foreseeable future, especially assuming he gets a contract. With Nick Kypreos, we think back now to a couple weeks ago, he this Darren Dreger report was very recently, a couple days ago. The Kypreos one was obviously a couple weeks ago. So if you line up some of the stars here, Kypreos thinks that if the Leafs wanted to skip a bridge deal and go straight to a long-term contract, Matthew Knies would want Slavkovsky money, which is, $7.6 million over 8 years, which again would be very pricey. That being said, it's kind of the way that a lot of these young players are going. Contracts aren't getting cheaper, and as the cap goes up, this would of course be less of a hit for them. But it's very intriguing here. And there was a little poll done by Overdrive 1050. Matthew Knies is awarded an 8-year contract with a $5 million AAV. Like, obviously you're going to take that. I don't know who made up this number. It's a bit ridiculous. Maybe 6 or 7 would have been a bit tougher to make the decision. But obviously 8 years at $5 million AAV, you do that without even thinking twice about it. But when you're looking at a Slavkovsky type contract, it gets a little bit more intriguing if you get the opportunity to give him this money. I'm personally, and I'm one of the biggest Matthew Knies fans out there, I don't know if I lock him down to a $7.6 million over 8 years. I'd almost prefer a bridge deal at this point. I just feel like it's a bit less risky for both sides, although you have a bit less upside because if Matthew Knies continues to develop and you lock him in at 7.6 over 8, which is what the Canadians did with Slavkovsky, and they're hoping that is going to pay dividends going forward. Off to a bit of a slow start, but he's been solid. it's an interesting contract, but it's one that's a bit more risky, but also has more upside if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I think the dollar amount really depends on what they're going to do with the contract too, because I could see it being a little bit more obviously if they go long term, right? I could see it being closer to Slavkovsky's contract, but in terms of like a bridge deal, I don't know if that makes too much sense. I mean, for either party, but we're gonna have to see how this plays out, and maybe the Leafs want to see how the season plays out as well to see, give him more runway because he started very well, but what if he, doesn't finish the season very strong or he kind of struggles right mid-season? So I think maybe there is incentive for both sides to let it get to the season, right? If you want to look at it that way as well. But pretty interesting for sure. The dollar amount is going to vary. I'm very comfortable. The $5 million a no-brainer to me. I'm comfortable even doing 6 because the salary cap is going to continue to go up. And I think this is a very valuable player that'll be really good for you in the playoffs, especially in the playoffs. You won't, score 80 points or be a point a game player in the regular season, but he's going to come to play when it matters in the playoffs. And we've seen it in years past, right? Last year and the years before. So Matthew Knies, great player. I would be comfortable doing 6.5. But again, I think the dollar amount is really going to vary depending on if it's a bridge contract or a long-term contract. And it looks like maybe they're leaning towards bridge and it's going to be max 4 years, but I don't even think it's going to be that long.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are. Obviously, we know how good Matthew Knies has been. 6 goals, 1 assist, 7 points. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with him. Let us know in the comments down below what your thoughts are on that. But Darius, let's move on now to Anthony Stolarz, which is another conversation. And I've been on the Anthony Stolarz train for a long time. Elliot Friedman spoke out on him. If I was playing in front of him, I would be very calm. And that's the biggest difference between him and Ilya Samsonov from previous years and even just their goalies over the past handful of seasons. He has really been probably the biggest X factor for this Leafs team. The reason that they have 6 wins despite playing pretty poorly in a lot of the games. But Darren Dreger and Anthony Stolarz, what would it mean if the Maple Leafs didn't have him? It would be different, right? And it would be a much bigger story, the story of goaltending overall for the Leafs. I guess the 2 things that stand out to me when I'm watching Stolarz play are his athleticism, which we saw in full display again last night, and his presence on the ice. He's well-sized, he's enormous, a big human being, but he doesn't seem to get rattled. And it's interesting because, again, I was huge on the Anthony Stolarz train, but I actually thought, and I mentioned it on the stream a couple games ago, not yesterday, I wasn't there, so shout out to you for handling that, but I mentioned what would happen if the Leafs hadn't assigned Anthony Stolarz, because Joseph Woll's gotten off to an extremely shaky start. Dennis Hildeby, extremely shaky at his time in the NHL. Matt Murray, we've yet to be seen, but we'd be having a conversation of Matt Murray and Joseph Woll if they decided, because again, they signed Joseph Woll to that 3-year deal, so if they hadn't assigned Anthony Stolarz, the story of the entire season would have been around the goaltending if they could have made the playoffs on the back of Joseph Woll. And again, it's still early for Woll. I think he'll bounce back. I'm not super high on him at this very point. I'm much higher on Anthony Stolarz, of course, but it's an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, Anthony Stolarz has started the season. It's been brilliant, right, from him so far, and he has taken on the role of the starter so far. We do need to see if he can, handle playing 40, 50 games because he's never done that, maybe even 60 games, right? We don't know what's going to happen this year, but, we need to see if he can handle that still, but his start has been brilliant. He's been fantastic, and I've said it time and time again that the energy of your goaltender flows through the team. If your goaltender is calm, he's making big saves, and you have confidence in him, the team will play with confidence in front of him. And another stat that I thought was very interesting to start the year for Anthony Stolarz, and this is from Mike Kelly on Twitter, is quality start leaders. And, how good are your starts when you're playing? Anthony Stolarz, number 1 in the league, right? With starts with a positive goals saved above expected. He's number 1 in the league so far this year. So putting up great numbers, not just, save percentage and goals against average, stuff like that has looked good. He's playing with a lot of confidence and he is winning them games as well. He's doing his part. So it's nice to, not be afraid of a point shot anymore, or maybe, a shot that's high danger, right? We know that he might save it. So it's been really good this season. He's been awesome.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal. And I'm the biggest Anthony Stolarz fan there is, so it's great to see him get the love he deserves. It's because of how good he's been on the Toronto Maple Leafs and how his start has been super hot. But let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all of this, and most importantly, what your thoughts are on a potential Matthew Knies extension. Let us know down below. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.